Hello, welcome to Fiberchats. And today my guests Kevin and Ray from Needlesattheready podcast here on YouTube. And if for some reason you don't know these two guys, check them out, subscribe, leave a comment, click that thing, you know what to do. So I've met you actually through Professor Pearl, and he was like, telling me, make sure you tell them I sent them to you. So he loves both of you. He loves the podcast, and he is a huge fan of your yarn, Kevin.
Oh, thank you.
So I want to start with that actually. So you started podcast last January?
Yeah, January of 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
And then from that point, how did you decide to get into the yarn dyeing?
It was Ray actually got me a little kit that he got online for Christmas. So it was just something I tried out. Like it came with some dye, some bare yarn, and I was just messing around with it, and it just kind of snowballed, I think like any fiber crafty thing.
Yeah.
Like you just get a little taste, and I just wanted to keep playing with different colors and yarn bases and see how it went. And finally I said, we don't have enough room for all this yarn if I'm going to keep dyeing. So we just took the plunge and opened up an Etsy shop to see how it would go. And it went really well. And I'm just still, on the weekends, taking some time and dyeing when I can.
Right. Yeah. Really, he was talking about it for a little while, wanting to do it. And, you were watching some YouTube videos and you just kept talking about it. And I was like, you know what, if I know you and you'll never just buy it yourself, or you will and you'll hide it from me.
Right.
So I figured I'll just buy it. And then, it snowballed from there. It's been really cool.
Well, talking of hiding things, so you go shopping together into the yarn stores. How does that work? Like, is there like a family? And by the way, Kevin likes to say in every episode that they are not twins, they are married. So just
yes, yes, thank you.
So when you go to yarn stores, how do you plan the amount of money you're gonna spend? Do you plan how much each can get? Like, how does that work?
No, there's actually no plan. I get really embarrassed sometimes.
Yeah.
When we go to check out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe we should check out separately just so it doesn't look like it's going to be that much. And they're just separate purchases. But typically when I go to a yarn store too, I normally have a project in mind, or I have some idea of what I'm looking for. So I try to just pick out things that I know that I'm going to use, I would say, right away.
Okay.
Yeah. The first time I went to the yarn store as like a knitter, because I just started knitting about a year and a half ago, and Kevin and I would go with him to the yarn shop, and I just kind of like stand in the corner. I did a little crochet or whatever. And I swear I thought that they were speaking a different language. Like I didn't understand, what that meant, I didn't understand anything. So now the first time I went as a knitter, I had a plan. I had a hat that I wanted to get yarn for. Right. And I did. And then the floodgates just opened. So now I just walk in and I have to be watched. Yeah. We do kind of split up a lot. And we'll meet up with our arms full of things.
Okay. So like, do you ever borrow each other's yarn?
Yeah. Yeah. Like we have our separate cubes behind us. Like mine's back here behind me and his is in the top left corner, but the rest of it's kind of a free for all. If you have a project in mind and you find something, just take it. The only time that there would be an exception if it was like a sweater's quantity or something, if you bought it for a specific project. But sometimes that just goes out of the window too, because you buy something 6 months ago and you feel differently about it 6 months later. So
right. Or you forget what project you were going to do.
Yes.
Right. So how did, what made you decide to learn how to knit, Ray?
Kevin, actually, because he started knitting about 7 years ago, and I would always watch and be like, that is so cool. And I wanted to do something, and I tried, and I just couldn't make it work. I was using the really long, like aluminum needles, and just trying to like knit and purl. And then Kevin said, why don't you try crochet? It's only like one hook.
Right.
So I did. I learned on YouTube. And so I would crochet while he would knit. And then as I was creating things, I would see some of the things that he was creating, and I really enjoyed the fabric of knits, much better than crochet's.
Right.
Yeah, most of the time, so I was like, oh, I want to do that. I like the drapiness of the fabric, and I felt like you can do a little bit more. So it wasn't until we started watching, I think, the Grocery Girls,
and you are huge fans of that podcast, right?
Yeah,
huge fans. And I made fun of Kevin again. It's another thing I made fun of him about, like, how could you sit there and just watch a knitting podcast? What are they doing? They're not even knitting. They're not teaching you anything.
Right.
And I heard him laughing one night. I had gone to bed and I heard him laughing one night. I was like, what were you laughing at? And finally he like turned it on. We watched it and I was hooked. And they were making all these socks and they were doing their sock talk segment. I was like, let me try it again. So I think I tried it on like, circular needles, just long circular needles just to knit something. And I don't know. And somehow for some reason it just clicked at that point. I think I was just ready. Yeah.
So now that you are a knitter, do you look at Kevin's stuff like more critically? Do you come with like, no, like this is not how it's done. Like, let me show you.
No, it's pretty much the opposite. I'm like, Kevin, can you look at this? Can you help me with this? But I do look at Kevin's stuff, and Kevin's a fantastic knitter. And, I do look at his stuff and I'm like, wow, I want my stuff to start looking like that. And I get excited, when I can kind of match what you do.
Do you guys ever knit the same things?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did. I would say we probably just started doing that a little more this year. We took place, we have a Thursday night knit group that we started, or that we got invited to. It's a Zoom one, and we started doing that last summer. And a bunch of us knit the Montrealer. We all cast on January 1st, so we did that together. Yeah. We both just did Vertices Unite by Stephen West for the Fiber Hustle knit along. So yeah,
and we did the Slip Stravaganza.
Yeah,
that was one of the first projects I think that we did together, and it was cool because it was an MCAL. Right. So we would get the clues together and start, each section together and be like, "What's yours looking like? What's mine looking like?"
Yeah, I think that would be the first thing that we've knit at the same time.
Right.
But I definitely copy him a lot because I see like what he does. I'm like, "Oh, that looks cool. I want to do one."
Well, do you copy him in sense of colors ever, or you like have completely different like aesthetics for the colors?
Completely different. Yeah. Ray's a very bright color. He loves he loves very bright, saturated colors. I love neutrals.
Right.
I like my colors a little more muted, so I tend to go that direction, and he tends to go bright.
Yeah.
Which was weird because when we did the Slip Stravaganza, we completely reversed our typical color choices, which was really nice to step out of a comfort zone doing something new for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you use your own yarn for like any of your projects? So that's all sort of goes for the sale?
Oh no, I did actually. One of the first yarns that I dyed up 4 skeins of a DK, and I used it to do the Paris Toujours shawl, which I loved. It was so great, like knitting a DK weight, because I was so used to knitting fingering weight shawls.
Yeah.
So like knitting a DK and then knitting it with yarn that I dyed that I absolutely loved was fantastic.
Right. Yeah. It's like probably like an extra high.
To know
that you made that,
Right.
And I knit a hat with your, like, probably the 2 of the first skeins you ever dyed.
Yeah.
You had no idea. I think it was from that original kit. And I knit a hat with that. I can't remember the name of it.
Rocky Ridge hat.
Right. Do you ever like make a color and you're like, that didn't go as planned?
All the time. And
so what happened to that yarn?
So what I do sometimes is I will then over dye it with some gray, because I just find gray and black, it's going to tone everything down. So if I just put it in a little bit of gray dye in the water, it tends to totally change the feel of it. Or sometimes it's just adding a third color or throwing on, black or gray speckles. So I just try to find a different way to transform it into something that I'd be happy with.
Yeah.
Right.
But I also try to keep in mind that even though I may not be happy with it, and it may not be something I would like to knit with, or the colors are outside of what I'd be comfortable knitting with, somebody else may like it. Like it could be in somebody else's wheelhouse.
Right.
So I try to keep that in mind as well.
It's funny because like I was interviewing Alison Randall, and she's the Shetland designer, and she does mostly like Fair Isle knitting. And I was asking her, like, do you ever, because she has such an amazing eye for color, like she blends all this, like the patterns like have 7, 8 colors, sometimes like she goes up to 12, I think. It's like amazing, like really like work of art. And I asked her, like, do you ever use colors and then you're like, like that wasn't amazing? And she's like, yeah, but then somebody's gonna like it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's true, because I like a lot of things that he may not be super excited about. Like I'll come home from work and see the skeins hanging up and be like, oh my God, this is great, I love this. And he'd be like, well, I don't know, I might re-dye it, I might add something to it. So yeah.
Right. So how was it like easy to find your first customers when you opened the Etsy shop? Was it like instant success? Do you also like, you do updates, like you're not having stock items there, right? You do like shop updates.
Yeah, so I've been doing updates just at the end of the month, and we've just been very fortunate because of the platform that we have with YouTube and having the channel, that it's been very successful from the beginning.
Surprisingly, like it was very surprising.
It's surprising, and it's humbling because everybody has their favorite dyers. I think the more that you knit and you find a dyer that you like, a lot of people tend to stick with, their, we'll say top 10 yarns. So for people to take a chance, it's just a really humbling experience, because you don't know when you venture out into something new how people are going to respond. So it's been an amazing couple of months with that.
Right. So when you started Knitting podcast, the first episode you were by yourself, Kevin.
Yeah.
So why did it change? Why did you decide that it's better to go together into this thing?
It was actually it was the way our schedules worked out. At the time when I first started, I was working, or I had Wednesdays and Sundays off of work. I worked on Saturdays. So my intention was to always record every other Wednesday. Ray typically worked during the week, but he happened to have that Wednesday off and was like, hey, can I join you? I said, sure.
I was kind of jealous.
So he jumped on. And then right after that, the company I worked for laid off a large portion of our staff, and my schedule changed. So now we were both off Saturdays and Sundays together, which we hadn't been in like 5 years.
Right.
So we now had the time to do it. So we just kept going with the two of us.
And it was just so much fun. And I was totally prepared to just, come in every once in a while. But I had so much fun doing it, but I didn't want to like step on his toes either. So, I wanted him to make the decision. And it was organic. I think we just kind of got ready and sat down, and that's it. Yeah.
Well, I have the question. So every once in a while, some sentence pops up and suddenly both of you like just burst into singing. Is that something that happens like every single day in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There's like, yeah, we probably just burst out into song or some random thing here. And yeah, I think our channel is so true to kind of like how we are at home.
Oh yeah.
And that's what makes it so fun, is that we never really go in with like an agenda. It had always been from the beginning just to be true to who we are. Like for me, when it started, to be exactly who I was. And then with the both of us, just to be who we are, how we are at home, and put that out there and see what happens.
Right. Is there like ever any negativity like from the people that viewing you, like any unsolicited advice that you cringe over, sort of thing?
Every once in a while, we are very fortunate. I mean, I would say the majority of our comments and our community has just been incredibly positive and just like so interactive and supportive. But you will get every once in a while, somebody who has just a negative thing to say, or, oh, I didn't like this, or, I don't like your dialogue, or something just like that. But it is kind of rare. But, we do respond to every comment, that does come through our channel. And we enjoy that piece, to be able to connect with people. So even on those comments, we do say, and we know we're not for everybody, thank you for coming by. Yeah. Good luck finding something else. It's just, Yeah, we just kind of roll with it. It is, you know, it's hard when you see like thumbs down or you do see like those one comments. It's hard for me.
No, my first thumb down, I almost cried. I was like, what happened? Like, tell me it was bad audio. Tell me it wasn't
right, exactly.
But we did realize that some people just, you know, some people feel like they need a platform too, to express themselves or whatever. It's, you know, it's okay.
Right.
Yeah, and and I think it's part of it's not something that you expect when you start a YouTube channel. It's not something that ever crossed my mind. So the first, you know, few were like, oh, okay. But then I just kind of realized like, it's just kind of part of the platform. It's not going to be for everybody. And that's okay. It's perfectly okay. But yeah, so now for me, it doesn't bother me.
Right. What was the thought process to start the YouTube channel? Like, what prompted you to actually like go and record that first podcast?
So for me, it was, at that point, I think I had been knitting on and off for 6 or 7 years, and I never knew what to knit. As a male knitter, I think it can be very hard to find projects that I want to knit. You know, my first couple things, I did a scarf, and then I was doing some mitered squares to just kind of practice. But then once I got there, I didn't know where to go. And there was Ravelry, but it wasn't very intuitive, I would say, back then when I first started knitting. So it was hard. And I started just using like YouTube search, just trying to find knitting content. And I found a couple podcasts, and the majority of them were women knitters. Then I found a couple men, but I realized that there weren't that many male knitters on YouTube.
Right.
And there's not that many male patterns on Ravelry, or there's a lot that are unisex that sometimes don't appear to be. So once I started watching podcasts, it gave me personally more ideas of stuff that I could knit. So I thought if those people could do it for me as a male knitter, if I can showcase patterns and maybe reach other male knitters, that's really what the intention was just to continue to grow that part of the community. And get patterns out there that maybe other guys would pick up. Maybe it's not something they thought of.
And find some friends who are into like the fiber arts and stuff to develop a community like that. We don't have anybody else in our lives that
I didn't know anybody else who knit prior to starting the channel.
Right.
No, that's so true, because like I feel the same way. Like when I started knitting, I actually started only 4 years ago. And when I started, like I didn't know anybody around me, like my surroundings in my neighborhood and my like friends group who knitted. And then suddenly through Instagram, through Facebook, I've met all these like amazing knitters, and it's very inspirational because you see something and you're like, oh, I didn't even know that exists, or like, oh, I want to try that. You know, it's like you meet new designers, new dyers, new knitters, and it's all, and you see all different kinds of techniques also. So you know, it just like pushes you in different directions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So talking about that, so I saw in your last podcast, Ray, that you started test knitting for Max the Knitter.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
So, you know, it's been cool because Max and Vincent, surprisingly, they watched our podcast and just like sending a message through Instagram or something, like Laugh Out Loud, or they were making fun of me. Essentially, I think that's how it started, trying to pronounce, like garçon and their names and all of that stuff. And, it just kind of snowballed, and they ended up becoming, I would say, like, Instagram friends, and we would chat back and forth, and they joined our knit group, a few times. And Max was knitting on that shawl during the knit group. And I just sent him a message and I said, hey, if you're looking for test knitters, I've never test knit anything before. I'm not like super experienced, but I would love the opportunity. And he's such a nice guy.
Yeah.
He said, sure. And that was it, and sent me the pattern. And
were you nervous to offer yourself as a test knitter?
Yes. And I still am. And I still am. So I'm still working on it. He had asked that we try to get as much done by the beginning of August. So I have some time still, But I feel like as I'm doing it, I'm really trying to pay attention, really trying to do a good job. I'm at the point where it's all, repeats now. So it's the pattern, the testing part is good, like everything made sense. Everything looks good, but I want it to look good for him, I think, almost more than for myself.
Right.
But yeah, it's been an interesting experience. It's been really cool to be knitting on something that not everybody has access to yet.
Right. No, I actually, I spent the entire last year, I think I tested 12 different patterns.
Oh my goodness.
And one of them was this huge Shetland lace shawl that was probably the most difficult thing I ever done so far, except for what I'm doing right now. Wow. But but it was just very interesting learning experience, because prior to that, I didn't test much. And working with different designers, you learn different styles of how they write the patterns. And some are very detailed and some are very brief and figure it out as you go sort of thing. So, but it's super interesting. It's such a learning experience also.
Oh yeah. This one has written instructions as well as a chart. And I've never used a chart before really in this. It's mosaic knitting. It's slip stitches and stuff. Right. But I've been using the chart more to teach myself. So to your point, yeah, absolutely. You get to learn new techniques and do different things.
Well, sounds like you're ready for Shetland lace now. I'll hold your hand.
Okay. I'll hold you to it.
What the funny part with Shetland lace, people are so scared of lace in general, and Shetland lace specifically, because it's probably one of the most complex types of lace, just because it's lace on both sides. There is no right side or wrong side. It's all lace. It's every row is lace. But there is no purl rows, and it's only 6 different stitches. So if you know the symbol for 6 stitches, you can do it, It's just a matter of patience, getting through the chart, I mean, the chart might look like Rachmaninoff's third concerto, but, it's still a chart. Well, what's up? So you had 41 episodes so far?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we did 41 episodes and a couple of lives.
How do you think you changed? How do you think your understanding of YouTube, understanding of your audience changed, or your comfort with the podcast? What have you learned along the way?
Definitely check your microphone before, especially when you don't edit like we do. I think we're more comfortable sharing information. I think especially me, as I'm much more comfortable knitting and understanding the language and yarns, and I think we're sharing more information, how many stitches we did for this, or how many rows we did for this, what size needles we used, and the yarn. I think that was surprising that a lot of people ask those questions.
Right.
I didn't expect people to be so into the projects that we're doing, and that people are actually like what Kevin was saying, using our podcast as an idea board. Yeah. And so I think we're just, and it's just a natural process too. I think we're more aware of what we're doing and what we're sharing, and we want to give good information.
Right.
So I think that's
for me, it was to not take myself so seriously. I would say probably my first 2 episodes with just me, I would probably have been a little more serious than I am. But also to just realize that people, it's weird, is that it's entertainment in a weird way. So people really like the banter and the talking. Some people don't care for that. Some people want all the information right up front, but it's finding that balance between the two things, the just chit chat and talking about the projects. And like Ray was saying, is really making sure that we get all of the information out, the yarn weights, the needle size, the pattern, the name of the designer. So really just trying to remember that that's still really the focus is the knitting and the projects, and continuing to share that and give people other ideas of stuff to knit.
Right. But we do go on our tangents all the time. That is just real life too.
Yeah.
Well, do you ever plan ahead before you go into the podcast, what exactly is going to be covered?
We know what projects. So we know the projects, and if we have received anything in the mail, whether it's a viewer sending us something or a maker sending us something to showcase on the episode, So we know what we've knit, we know what we've like purchased or received, and that's pretty much it. The rest of it just is kind of like a fly by the seat of our pants. We both used to have notebooks up here with stuff written down and things that we wanted to make sure that we covered. Every once in a while we pull them back out and bring them up with us, but a lot of it's just sitting down, turning on hitting record, and then just going and seeing what happens.
Yeah, like the day of the podcast, we'll usually, one of us will sit down and we have a document that, you know, we update for our show notes because we want to try to be as like inclusive in our show notes as possible. So we do we'll update the show notes with the projects, like Kevin said, you know, what we're going to show, and make sure that we list the yarns at least in the shops, because if we don't talk about it and we show something, we at least want to have it like there.
Right.
And then that's it. And then, we just sit down and chat.
Yeah.
So who does the editing? Who does the posting? Like, is there like one of you responsible, or just whoever is willing to hustle it that day?
Kevin mostly does that.
Yeah. So the only editing I do is I put the name of the podcast and the episode number at the beginning. When I remember, I turn up the volume to like 125% so that there's no volume issues. And I add the show notes to it, post it, and then I do the Instagram post for us that day. And and that's it. I really wanted to make sure there are podcasts out there and YouTubers who are really good at editing.
Oh my gosh.
That's
amazing
one of the things that they love doing for their channel.
Yep.
And it was something I know that I'm not good at. So when it was just me, I made the decision early on that I wasn't going to edit.
Right.
I just kind of wanted it to be as natural as possible. So we record, hit start, hit end, and then we just put it up.
Yep.
You put it up the same day. So the day you record, like 2 hours later, an hour later, it goes on.
Most of the time, a lot of that actually depends on YouTube.
Yeah.
There are times where YouTube could get it up within like, I don't know, like an hour, sometimes less. Okay. There are other times where it takes a couple times where it went overnight, and like we woke up and it was on. So that was actually kind of a learning experience too, is I've now changed it so that it does, if something like that were to happen, it doesn't automatically go up.
Like at middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, so that I can make sure I have the show notes and all that stuff in there. So that's the one thing probably that I've changed, and that's only been within the past couple of months, so that it doesn't go up until I tell it to like, yes, I'm ready for everybody to view it.
Right. How did it go from your like first subscriber? And do you know who was your first subscriber, by the way?
It was probably me.
It was Ray. Ray was my first subscriber.
Well, how did it go from just Ray to 10,000?
No idea.
No. You know what it is? It's actually the community.
Yeah.
So I remember, I'm a very light sleeper. So I woke up in the middle of the night and I got out of bed and I saw like a notification on my phone that said, like, great episode, heard about you from Ross. And I had no idea what that meant until I woke up the next morning. And it was Ross from Smells Like Yarn had mentioned us on his channel. And that brought a whole bunch of subscribers. Right. And it's been things like that. It's been other podcasters and people that we get to call friends now who've mentioned us that really helped grow that base. And then then it's just kind of because of the community too, just leaving comments and liking or disliking, whatever it is, it helps get the channel out there. And I think a big part for us is the consistency.
Yeah.
Like we have it in our phones. It's on our calendar every other Saturday that it's a podcast day. So we do really try to make an attempt to work our schedule around that so that we know we need a 2-hour block of time every other Saturday, at least, to record an episode. So I think that's been a really key ingredient for us, is just the consistency and doing it every 2 weeks.
Yeah. I look forward to it. It's so much fun. I mean, for me, it's just so much fun.
Do you ever wake up Saturday morning and you are completely not in the mood for another podcast and you just want to skip it?
I don't think so. I would say that there's one episode that I remember doing and we had waited till later in the afternoon, probably like somewhere around 3 or 4. And we typically will record pretty early in the morning. Like we're both morning people.
It's 10 o'clock in the morning. That's not pretty early.
10. Yeah. We'll say about 10 is typically when we get started, but we're typically morning people. We like to get all of our stuff done early on in the day. Right. So that one episode, I remember, not that I didn't want to do it, but I knew I didn't have the energy for it. Mm-hmm. And it came across. It came across in the episode. I remember getting a couple comments about it. But you just kind of knew going into it, and by the end of it, that it was like, oh, it's just going to be one of those episodes.
Do you ever like look back at your episodes and you're like, I don't know what I was doing. Like, I wish I did it completely differently.
I've never watched one of our episodes. I've never sat down and watched one.
I would love to go back. I do watch them afterwards because like we do fly by the seat of our pants. So half the time I have no idea what we covered or what we talked about outside of like our projects. So when we get comments, you know, and people post comments without any kind of background sometimes, you know, or like, oh, I agree with that, or, you know, or it's blue. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, so it gives me an opportunity to kind of like watch it back. We'll do quality control. I'll do quality control. But I would like to go back to watch some of the older ones.
Maybe one day I will.
You should like go on vacation one day and just binge watch all.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Be interesting.
That's one of the best parts about finding a podcast for me is binging. Yeah. I love going back and watching like a channel from the beginning. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
No, like you mentioned that you're watching Lucifer, and I was like waiting until all the seasons come out until I just sat down like look at all of them, because I didn't want to not know what's going to happen to Lucifer.
Exactly. Like we were watching. Yeah, that's exactly right. And because I almost wanted to wait with Lucifer because I like to do the same thing.
Right.
But it was a good show, so I'm glad that we didn't wait.
I love Lucifer. Yeah. What are you working on now? Like, what's the plans for the nearest future?
So I just finished a project, so I have to find like some future knitting. I finished my Vertices Unite for the Hustlers for Fiber Hustle. So I just finished this.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So now I'll probably cast on another shawl, and I'm going to go, I have a sweater that I've been struggling with. So I'm going to tackle that and try to finish that. But I think another shawl, I find that I love knitting shawls. I've definitely become a shawl knitter. So I will find another one, maybe just like a one skein and cast that on.
Do you wear your shawls, or do you like what happens to the projects that you knit?
I want to say everything that I knit.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that I love shawls as much as I do.
Same.
And, you know, and that goes back to like when I first started knitting, you see them as a guy and you're like, am I going to wear those? And you don't see other guys wearing them. And then once I did, like my first shawl was probably a Stephen West, one of his earlier shawls, one of his first patterns. But for me now, it's the process. I just love the process of knitting a shawl, especially if it's a garter stitch.
Yeah.
There's just something so like therapeutic about knitting it and fun to seeing it grow. And I wear them all the time. It's what during the winter, I love wearing one. In the fall, just throwing one on instead of a jacket. I mean,
perfect. I just wore a shawl the other day and it's like 80 degrees outside. I threw it on to go out into the deck or something.
He sure did.
Right. Yeah. Well, when you wear shawls, have you ever, or when you wear any of your knitting, or if you knit in public, or if you go into the yarn store, have there ever been any negative reaction? Because, and the reason I'm asking, so Romy Hill a while ago posted something with her son wearing a shawl, and suddenly she lost like 400 subscribers overnight. And so as a matter of support, I posted every guy with shawl I could find in my stories, you know, trying to encourage guys to wear shawls. And I find it a little bit silly because like historically, if you look at it, shawls were worn by men throughout history. Like you see all the paintings and stuff. And I think it's also predominantly American thing where shawls are thought as women's garment. Have you ever had any negative experience with wearing them?
I don't think wearing them. I don't think so.
No, I don't think I have had any experience with wearing a shawl, getting any negative feedback on it. I would say that we don't get much negative feedback just being male knitters. You know, we've gone into yarn stores before and not felt welcome.
Yeah.
And, or, you know, get a comment like, oh, you're here to buy yarn.
Right.
You know, and that look as a male, you know, as a man walking into a yarn store. So yeah, there's definitely still that
stereotypical.
But there was excitement when we did the Knit in Public Day. We sat outside our local yarn store this past June, and there was a guy, you know, just kind of walking around or whatever, and he came over. We were all just kind of in a group knitting. He's like, "Oh my God, look at the guys are knitting. That is so cool."
Yeah.
Right.
He said, "I've never seen that before." He was really excited about it, which I thought was kind of cool.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's great. When you knit in public, do you feel like that was like one time when it happened, or do you always feel like it getting attention of people and it's like breaking the ice between, like creates conversations, drives people like closer to you?
I actually wish I knit in public more. I don't really have much of an opportunity to do that. So this is the first time I think that I've actually sat down this year to knit in public. Yeah. And I actually brought my knitting for the first time just this past weekend to like a family barbecue. And I had never done that before either, just kind of knitting while we were sitting outside with my family. And at first it was a little bit awkward for me, I think, because I'm expecting comments, you know, and
right.
But, you know, it's been fine. It's been a good experience, really.
Right. It's funny because I'm interviewing Louis from Brooklyn Boy Knits next week, and I watched his video, like how his TED talk, and he basically says that when he first time braved taking out knitting on the subway, it was basically like his fear of how people gonna react more than the people's actual reaction. You know, it's like you expect that people gonna judge you more than they actually care about it.
Yeah, you like work yourself up almost, and then it doesn't happen, and you're like, okay.
Right.
It's just a weird thing. Like I haven't done it much either, but it's funny because Louis, I remember seeing that picture of him on the subway when it first came out. And that's probably one of the first guys that I ever saw in the knitting community. Mm-hmm. So that was really, really cool to see. And then to see like him now and like his journey from that picture to where he is now is really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, what he did with the amount of time and effort he gives back to the community is like really inspiring. I'm
amazing.
Yeah, really excited about him. How have you ever had a celebrity moment where like random people scream in the street because they recognize you from your podcast?
No, but it was really cool. Like at the Knit in Public Day, we had some amazing people come down to visit us, specifically from Massachusetts.
Yes.
And another had driven, over an hour away to come in and to see us. And it was just like, really, you drove all that way? It was kind of like, oh, wow.
Are you planning to go to Rhinebeck this year?
We are, yeah.
So, they have the Podcasters Hill. So you just put your sign of your podcast and people come to say hi. So
I didn't know that. I didn't even make a sign.
We don't even have a sign.
No, thank you for letting us know. I'm glad we did
that. You have that logo there.
Maybe we'll grab that one.
Drag it along and like walk with it on the hill.
Yeah.
But they have this hill like right in the middle of the Rhinebeck, and all the podcasters are there meeting their fans.
Oh, I did not know. I thought it was just some place to like meet up and say hello.
I didn't know it was like
me neither. How cool!
Like oh,
yeah. Okay, you should definitely do that. Tell your audience that you're gonna be there. I'm actually gonna be there, so I'll come and say hi.
Yeah, you totally should.
Are you going? Are you going both days, or are you going one day?
I'm probably gonna go Friday through Sunday and turn it into. It's right around my birthday, so I'll go and turn it into a mini celebration getaway.
That's great. Fun. Yeah, we're gonna be there Saturday.
Yeah, we're gonna go this Saturday.
Yeah, we're gonna make a day trip of it.
I was there just one time 2 years ago before COVID, and it was like the most unbelievable experience. It was like I took every single class I could take. I was like, my schedule was packed.
Oh, that's fun. We've never been.
No.
And Ray's never been to like a fiber festival as a knitter. We went to one.
I should probably take my credit card away.
I know. I should. We went to one. We went to the Connecticut Sheep and Wool Festival, which used to be held. I think it was in Vernon, if I'm not mistaken. So we had 1 year. Ray did not knit. He wasn't even crocheting at that point. So he was just there like as support for me to walk around, I guess. So it'll be fun to actually go to one, because we were going to go to Stitches United, which was going to be in Connecticut, but then COVID, I think it got canceled 2 weeks.
Right before the event.
Before it was supposed to happen.
No, it's really fun. It's like there's 70,000 people that come there.
Oh my gosh.
It's insane. I mean, I have never seen anything like this ever.
But that's a lot of people.
That is, maybe we'll stay home. I'm just kidding.
No, but it's like, it's so fun because everybody is wearing their knitting. So you see, I mean, I didn't even care about buying yarn there. I was just so blown away. I was like, my head was spinning just looking at all the projects people were wearing.
That's what I think I'm most looking forward to, is just like the people, you know, in the community, and just seeing people and saying hello and hugging people if we can, you know.
And of course, like anybody was there. Steven West was there. Women were screaming and like running up to him to take a picture. I might have been one of them.
We'll probably be the next ones if he goes this year.
Seriously, yeah. Well, hopefully I'll meet you there.
Yeah, that'll be great.
You know, that would be fun. Or maybe, you know, we are neighbors. I'm in Massachusetts, so.
Oh, you're not far. We were just in Mass.
Yep, we were just there this last weekend.
We'll cross paths in some local yarn stores.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really fun.